Welcome. Good afternoon. Welcome to part 2 of our 4-part QBO Bootcamp. This session today is called the Best Practices. So welcome to the Best Practices of session of our 4-part bootcamp. And as the title indicates, we're going to discuss the best practices with your QBO platform. You can call this session a tips and tricks session, but that just sounded a little bit too, I guess, corny. And so we do feel that this is a little bit more than that. It's more of what we see as accountants that is the biggest benefit, or are the biggest benefits to a software like QuickBooks Online. So you can call this session a few of our favorite things, to borrow from The Sound of Music. So this session is a continuation of the quest we embarked on when we came up with this idea of the 4-part series, which was to give business owners more tools and resources when overseeing their businesses from an accounting perspective. So if we can go to the second slide, where it has pictures of our presenters. Today we have, again, Joy Huffman, a manager in the Business Solutions Group here at SingerLewak, Jamie Lavoie, manager also at the Business Solutions Group, and me, Lara Buitrago, a director in the Business Solutions Group here at SingerLewak. And we are the team that provides outsourced accounting services to businesses. A little bit of housekeeping. We do have here our QR code to LinkedIn. Business Solutions Group does have a LinkedIn account. And so we have some great information on there, tips and tricks, current business trends. There's even a few episodes of a podcast called Fran Factor, where we talk about various business situations and ideas. And so we hope you go ahead and join our LinkedIn. The QR code works if you have the LinkedIn app on your phone. So you would use your QR reader to scan it, then press a button that says open in URL. And when you press that button, it actually takes you directly to our LinkedIn page. So if you have any issues, let us know, and we're happy to send you a link. Much easier way probably to access our LinkedIn account. So Joy, Jamie, and
I'm sorry, Laura.
Go ahead, Jamie.
Interrupt, but hi, everybody. The QR code will be presented again at the end of the presentation. I think you can see in the chat that Nathan just let you all know on that. And I think that was it. Back to Laura.
Okay, thank you so much, Jamie. So just to continue on, Joy, Jamie, and I are part of the Business Solutions Group here at SingerLewak. We provide outsourced accounting services to businesses. We like to say we provide solutions, and solutions is our middle name. So at the end of the day, we want to be your accounting department. We always recommend to business owners to make sure you carefully select your accountant and your accounting solution. We understand that QBO makes it very easy for business owners to do the accounting themselves or hire a non-expert to perform the accounting functions. It's so easy to use. That's mostly why it is one of the largest used accounting platforms, cloud-based accounting platforms out there. But there is an understanding that as a business owner, you're also focused on growing your business, you're focused on innovation, keeping up with current market trends, business trends. That takes a lot of time. And we are here as the Business Solutions Group to help you maintain proper accounting and finance controls. This bootcamp is, as we've said before, is not a how-to. And we are not inviting you to do your own accounting, but we want to educate you as a business owner so that you can evaluate your accounting. We want to see that when you speak to your accountant, whether it's Business Solutions Group or not, that you are in possession of enough information regarding accounting and finance to participate in meaningful dialogue. We want to empower business owners by providing you with some key knowledge regarding your accounting department. That is truly our goal here. Well, with that, we do have a few polling questions. I know a few folks have asked if we could provide CPE, so we do have these poll questions available so that we can comply with the standards to provide a CPE. So you should see the first poll pop up and go ahead and give your answer. Easy questions. We did not want to make it too confusing for you. So why don't we go ahead and let folks start answering. It's, what is your favorite feature of QuickBooks Online? And we give you a couple of options. These are probably our favorite features, but we're giving you guys a choice of the three. So with that, why don't we, I'll give you guys a few more seconds, and then why don't we go ahead and start the live demonstration. We have Joy here today, similar to the last session, who will be doing the live presentation. Both her and I will be talking, so we're going to be tag teaming on this. So Joy, when you are ready, let me know.
Can you see my screen okay? I just shared that.
I do see your screen.
Perfect.
So, all right, let's get started. So again, we are talking about best practices, a few of our favorite things. So, and I think we're also going to address the questions I've gotten from clients in the past that we do feel there are solutions. So hopefully we're going to address some of your concerns today. Last week, I had a conversation with a client who was saying how much he loves QuickBooks Online. It's easy to access, all that other stuff. And he said, but one of the things that frustrates him the most is when he is reviewing his balance sheet and P&L, that in QuickBooks, you have to constantly regenerate the report. You can't view two reports at the same time. With desktop, you can, but with QuickBooks, he can't do it. And I said, however, that is not exactly true. There is a way, there's a little trick. So this is our first trick. It's called duplicating tabs. So Joy is going to show that right now, how you basically go up to the tab, you right click and press duplicate, right there, duplicate tab. And it opens up a second instance of QuickBooks Online, same client. It's not giving you a random account. And here is where, so Joy can probably pull up really quickly, go under reports, pull up a balance sheet, and then in the other tab, quickly pull up a P&L, and you can toggle back and forth and view the reports. So this is very, very helpful. And also, I know there's other tricks out there that we're not going to get into right now, but I just want to give you guys some tools. You could do some Google searches. You can also do things where you can view two accounts. So if you have more than one business, you can actually view two accounts at the same time using the incognito function. And the way you do it depends on your browser. So that's one of the reasons we're not going to demonstrate that today. I believe in Edge, it's called a private window. But I recommend you do a Google to see how it works for the browser you use. I just want to let you know that the option is out there. So that is favorite thing number one. And the next one, I just have to give an intro to this. This really requires the red carpet. It's really what set QBO from other accounting platforms. When they came up with this cloud version, it is the bank feeds. And Joy will go into what exactly that is. We did touch on it last time, but she's going to give you some more ideas and features on the bank feeds. And then there is also something called rules, which Joy did give you a teaser on last time. We are going to demonstrate that today. So this is a big section. It's probably the longest section we have because there's so much to show you. And it really is an amazing feature. And take it away, Joy.
Well, thanks for that, Laura. Yes, we did talk a lot about bank feeds last session as well. We're going to do a little bit more of a deep dive. We'll have some things that we go over that are duplications of what we did before, just in case you missed them. We won't spend maybe quite as much time on those, but we are going to go over some of those. So the first thing that I want to pull your attention to was one of the things that we talked about last session, which was the bank balance versus the QuickBooks balance. This will tell you when the last time that they went and pulled transactions from your bank and brought them down into the bank feeds area. If you recall, I referred to this bank feeds area as purgatory, partially because we all understand that concept of what that means. So what this means is that these transactions specifically are not on all of our reporting yet. So they will not be on our balance sheet or our profit and loss or appear anywhere in our transactions unless you have already prior entered them. In the case of this deposit, you can see it's a match here. And what that means specifically is that you actually already entered that deposit and the bank is matching to that transaction. But anything that's over here that has add next to it, it's not finding a transaction that is similar enough for it to be part of your books. So at this point, it's in purgatory. So I just want to remind you of that particular feature. When people are asking, why can't I find this $55 books for Bessie? It's because it's not in your books yet. It's sitting here in our purgatory. If you are looking up here and you notice that for some reason a span of time has gone between when this was last updated and now, like it'll say 5 days or whatever, you can go ahead and click this update button here. It's going to go ahead and go out and take a look for all of those transactions and it will bring them in. You don't have to wait for this update. You can continue to work, but it's something that can start running right now just to make sure that we have all of our transactions. If there is something along the lines where you may have changed the password for the bank account, you may have to go log back in to reconnect it. So that is something that could happen. Or occasionally banks will do updates themselves where they will push through a new update that will require you to re-sign in. So even if you haven't changed anything, it is possible that the bank side did an update. And of course, we have the third issue, which is QBO. The software itself may have done an update. Rarely does this happen where it's a security issue. And if that is the case, then there will be lots of announcements about it. You will see emails coming through that will let you know that QBO has done an update that will require you to update your bank logins to try to keep you informed of that. They will let us know as accountants so we can also pass along that information to you. And if you ever have any questions about it, of course, you can just Google it and find out if there has been a recent update. The categorization, we're going to get into that a little bit more detail this time. So down here, when I'm trying to do this categorization and bringing that information into my books, I have some options, and we went through this a little bit. We're going to go through it a little bit deeper this time. So if I look at this particular transaction, and I have this $200 that was a source of income for us, I can assign the customer that paid it if I would like to. In other words, if it's not a part of my AR, whereas in that case, I would be receiving a payment. But in this case, if I just do sales receipts or if I just have income that's brought in that's outside my normal sources, I can go ahead and assign it to the customer if I still want to be able to see it under their name. And then I'm going to pick my income category chart of account from my list of chart of accounts. We're going to talk a little bit more later on about revenue streams and chart of accounts and why you would have different types of those instead of maybe just one. Now, for some businesses, one sales account or one income account is sufficient. But for others, you might want to have multiple revenue streams that you're going to want to track, excuse me. So we'll talk a little bit about that later. So I would select my income. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and say services. Now tags, we haven't spent a lot of time talking about tags in the past because it's kind of getting into the weeds. I will say this one thing. Tags can be another form of classes. And what I mean by that is it's a different type of list. You can't run all of your reports on tags. You can run your profit and loss on tag and certain types of transaction reports by tags, but you can't run like a balance sheet by tags. But it is a nice way to be able to sort through some information if you don't have classes enabled on your particular QuickBooks, or you don't even have that functionality. So this is something that might work instead of having to upgrade from your Essentials to your Plus to get those classes. This might be a workaround. So if you're interested in that, contact us and we can go through that a little bit more detail. A memo here, you can have this bank detail information brought in and be part of this this memo. Laura, I know you really are excited about this bank detail memo. We talked about this just recently. Did you want to talk about that a little bit more?
Sure. I think where I have found that bank detail helps the most is when you are receiving a lot of deposits electronically. When your accountant processes that deposit, they put the customer number, they classify it to your sales account. But unfortunately, mistakes can be made. And so one way that we as accountants have found errors is we go back to, there are details in the electronic deposit that could give customer number, and that's where we find the errors. They put it to customer A, but it ended up being from customer B. So it's always good to have that raw data that you got from the bank in case you're thinking, in case you have a customer who says, but I paid you on XYZ date, I sent you a wire. Then you can go to May 19th, which is today, but you can go into May 19th and say, no, that actually came from someone else. Well, let me look at the bank information. So instead of having to log into your bank account, look for it over there, you have it right here in your QuickBooks all in one place. I think that is an incredible feature that we would like to see more business owners employ.
Thanks for going over that a little bit. A lot of times what you'll see too is you can just copy and paste this information straight in there. I literally just highlighted over that and just pop that right into that memo. So that way it's always part of that permanent record. Even if I don't do that, I can still dig into this to get into that information. One of the other things I wanted to show you is that you can split this. So for example, if part of this $200 that's coming from A1 rental is for services, like where we talked about we have multiple income sources, part of it's for services and part of it's for a fee, I can go ahead and split that. So this feature down here, I'm going to click on that and it's going to pop up this box for me. So it's still going to be from A1, right? I still have my memo. That information is the same. But let's say that like 150 of it is for my services, and maybe they are doing some kind of a reimbursement for fuel, and that's why it's part of it. So for example, if they had $150 since this is equipment rental, and we charged them $50 for fuel that we wanted to reimburse back to our expenses, we could do that. We have that as an option. Or if it was a direct equipment rental fee or something along those lines. So there could be a lot of different reasons why you would want to split this. You can make it as a credit back to expense as I discussed, or you can put it to an entirely different income form. For right now, for ease, I'm just going to go ahead and say they were reimbursing us for $50 of fuel as well. Then you'll see how that, when I had that number there, it would show me what my difference was, so that way I can total the amount of the deposit. One of the other things that I can do in particular here, if I have multiple lines, so I have multiple numbers that I need, I can continue to do that. So I can split this down into a lot of different transactions. Laura, can you talk a little bit about the attachment feature here when we're talking about how we would want to split this possibly?
Sure. Again, another one of my favorite things about QBO. This feature is excellent because the attachment, this is where you can easily drag some source documentation about this transaction. So in this case, this is a deposit. And so you want to probably drag in a copy of the invoice so that they can see the breakdown of the invoice and understand why it was categorized the way it was categorized. This is obviously, of course, if you're not using the invoice function in QBO, but what pretty much every single transaction in QBO has this attachment function.
Mm-hmm.
As accountants, we use this all the time. We use it a lot for journal entries as well, particularly if, let's say, you're recording depreciation expense. I know when I go in and I see depreciation expense, the first thing I think is, where did they get this number from? Was it from the tax return? Is it calculated? How did they calculate it? Are they depreciating over 5 years or 10 years? How do we get to this number? A lot of times, if you're calculating things like depreciation in Excel, it's great to, for that month, when you're recording depreciation, to drag in your schedule right into the journal entry. It's all, again, in one place. I'm sure you have it saved in your files, your OneDrive, whatever you're using, but it's so much easier when you're taking 15 minutes to go through your numbers and you see depreciation. Depreciation went up this month. Why? Click, look at the attachment, you see the report, you saw you bought a bunch of fixed assets, and so obviously you now have more depreciation expense this month. Easy, all in one place. We want to make sure that people take advantage of that add attachments. It really is a cool feature here.
So go ahead, Jamie.
We have a couple of quick questions.
Yes.
And the first one was, can you use the auto population feature to fill in the memo field based on the bank detail? Can you auto populate?
Yeah, we're going to get into some of those things here in just a second. So yes.
Okay.
And I was showing one way to do that. Mm-hmm.
Okay. The second question we hit was also, can you split by classes? And the answer to that one is yes.
Yes.
And I'd like to remind everybody that's attending, if we can use the Q&A part of the Zoom chat, the Zoom features, as opposed to the chat, we'll be better able to answer the questions. The chat tends to get a little lost, and I don't want anybody to feel like their questions didn't get answered. So take it back to the team.
All right, thank you, Jamie. So once I have done the split, and yes, you can split this by classes. We don't have that particular feature turned on in this, but that's a perfect example of where you may have the same, they may all be services, but you're gonna separate it by class for different reasons. I'm gonna go ahead and accept this particular transaction. The next part that we're going to focus on is how we can review our transactions in our bank feeds in particular. So there's a lot of different ways that we can group this, or some of the options, some of that stuff we talked about, the bank detail. Here on this gear here, if you click on this, there's a couple of things that we can do. You can copy that bank detailed memo. That was what we were just asked about. So I can turn that feature on so it'll automatically take that bank detail information that I copied and pasted and put it in my memo. I can also make an editable date field if I wanted to. I can show amounts in column 1. You can see the features that I can do here. One of my favorite features in particular is turning on this grouping, and I'm going to show you why. We're going to do that right now. So as I turn on this grouping, when I go back to my bank feeds, you'll see that it is now grouping it by date. The reason it is grouping it by this month is because this is the particular column that I am sorting it on. So if I wanted to sort it instead by payee, I can do that. So I can put a sort by payee. So this will enable me to be able to quickly peruse and see I've got payees in here, okay? If I wanted to sort it by my categories or matching, I can do that. You see how it's grouping it all? So all 16 of these match. So if I wanted to do a quick bring in all my matches, because I know that they are all great, I can select all of those, and then I can just say accept or exclude or do whatever I want to do with that particular function. So that can be a very quick way to do a whole bunch of this at the same time. I can also, up here under all transactions, If I want to see who's missing a payee or a customer, I can come here and filter those transactions. Payee names are very important when it comes to accounting information, especially when we're tracking for things like 1099s. We need to make sure that the transaction, just because the bank says squeaky clean car, doesn't mean that we have it in our vendors list. So if we have to track those particular transactions because of the fact that we have to 1099 them at the end of the year, you want to make sure that your payee field is filled out. So this is a great way to quickly look at that information and assign it as needed, okay? You can also look at just what's recognized. Again, these are filtering and sorting options that you have. If we send those things to group together, and if I want to dig down even further, I want to say, okay, I want my unassigned transactions that match something. I can do that. Or if I want to do my unassigned transactions and I want to sort them by payee, you see how I can quickly get to the information I'm looking for, so that way I can make decisions about it. You have a lot of options here. This is probably, especially as somebody who looks at a lot of different sets of books, this is one of the best features that I can tell you about, because we can take this information and bring it all in. So now I'm going to let you in on something. We are going to get to bank rules because I know everybody's excited about that, but I want to let you in on a little secret. I'm going to make a mistake here, and I'm going to make a mistake because I'm kind of opening up the door for what Laura is going to talk to you about next. So if for some reason I wanted to accept all of these or exclude them, I can do that, okay? So I'm going to, for right now, let's just go ahead and say that I'm going to exclude all these transactions. Well, now we have a problem. Where did they go? I have to be able to figure out a way to get back to that information. Not only that, I'm going to accept a whole bunch too. So I'm going to take all of these and I'm going to accept them just kind of arbitrarily. And maybe they didn't match anything and I didn't really pay attention. Now, what do I want to do? Laura, you want to show us what we're going to do in this particular case?
Well, there's a couple things. So I think this feature is excellent for internal controls. We can talk about internal controls in accounting all day long. We could have a whole session of it. In fact, maybe we will if you request it. But what I like most about this is the bank has fed into QuickBooks all the transactions that went through your bank. If you, let's say, have an accountant who is committing some sort of dishonest act, obviously this person might not want you to see that transaction because they wired themselves $100. So they'll exclude it. Well, guess what? You can view that. So what I would do as a business owner, and what I do, we all do as accountants, is we check that excluded section and understand why it was excluded. There are reasons transactions can be excluded. For instance, a good example would be something was wrong with the bank feed, or a transaction was entered twice. Joy, do you have any other example of why we would want to exclude?
And this is a great thing to talk about. So if you've already reconciled your account, so if I was reconciled through the end of April and these bank feeds I had forgotten to bring in, I'm going to exclude them, because once you reconcile a month and it closes, what it does is it will no longer match that transaction to the register, even though it's the same thing.
Right.
It doesn't see it anymore. So that's a perfect reason. Yep.
Right. So what we're trying to say is there are cases where things could be excluded, but as a business owner, take a look. Make sure that you understand why everything was excluded. I know another thing is Joy kind of haphazardly accepted a bunch of transactions. Unfortunately, they're probably mistakes. So what do? I made a mistake. So one of the great things is you can go to this categorize section and see what you did, and there's an undo action to the right. What it does is it pops it right back into the for review, and you can revisit what you did or what needs to be done. Another thing, and I think this is excellent also for an internal control. Let's say you have an accountant that does accept, maybe finishes up their bank rec, or you review everything, but it wasn't a transaction that should be in your register. So they would go into the register, and you can actually delete transactions in the register, which, you know, some people can argue that that's not a good function, but there's recourse. So if Joy went in and deleted a transaction, it doesn't go away forever. It actually goes back into the bank feed to be addressed. That is an excellent feature right there. It really helps give you comfort that all transactions are being accounted for properly, because no matter what, you cannot get rid of it in the bank feed. The only way you can get rid of it is to exclude it, but yet you go into the exclude and you can review what was excluded. So this in itself is an excellent internal control. I cannot stress that enough.
Perfect. Perfect. As you can see, that's something that we use a lot. Jamie, I see that you have a question before we go into the next section. Did you want to share that with us?
Yes, please. This actually is a little step back to the attachments, but attachments are actually my favorite thing in QuickBooks Online. So the question we have, and it sort of addresses a little bit more as a best practice. The question that was raised was Julia commented that she's noticed when she makes a payment in Melio, which we're going to be talking about, and add the invoice or bill as an attachment, the attachment does not carry into QuickBooks. So she ends up adding each attachment twice, once in Melio, once in QuickBooks. Her question is, would it work to put it first in QuickBooks, to have that as the start and then pay it in Melio? Or does this become one of those items that you'd have to probably attach twice?
To answer the question, with Melio in particular, it really, as amazing as it is a separate software. So you are looking at doing something to attach twice. So my recommendation is, where do you need to see it at the end of the day? Melio is just the payment of it, right? So if you really want to be able to track it in your QBO, that's where you're going to want to do the attachment. That would be my recommendation about that in particular. I know it'd be nice if they went, if it transferred it backward, but at this point in time, I don't know of a way that's going to happen. But you know what I love is that we can make suggestions. So we absolutely will push that up and make that to suggestions to our Intuit friends and let them know that that would be a really good feature to see how that happen. So thanks for that question, Jamie. Great question.
Well, thank you, Julia, for the question.
So we're going to get into bank rules next. I'm actually going to go into different bank rules. There's ways to set them up very quickly. So in particular, I'm going to go to Books by Bessie. I'm going to take, actually, I'm going to change my mind. I don't want to check. I'm not looking for checks. I do not like to make rules on checks. Oh, let's do this. Let's do Mahoney mugs. So right in here, if I buy, let's say that Mahoney Mugs does a lot of advertising mugs for us. We buy a whole bunch of SingerLewak mugs and we continue to give those out as gifts to our clients. I want this to be an advertising. So I'm going to go ahead and assign this to a particular category of advertising. If I had wanted to, do my detailed memo and all of that stuff, so that way I have that, I can do all that information. We talked about that earlier. A couple of things that are really helpful here that we did not see on the last transaction. I can look at where I categorize this historically. So I can quickly do a glance and see, have I been doing this consistently all the same time? Now that's great and helpful for something like Mahoney Mugs, not so great maybe for something like Costco. So watch when you're looking at your categorization, what you're looking for. But right in here, I can go ahead and create a rule, which is what we're gonna do. So this box will pop out and I'm literally just gonna call this Mahoney Mugs, right? Because that's really what it is. I'm going to apply this transaction to money that is going out. And I can choose to do it from all of my bank accounts or just from one specific bank account. Or I can choose that if it's money out of my checking and my MasterCard, because maybe I'm looking to get my points because I want to take that trip to Europe, I can go ahead and select both of those. So that way, if money goes out to Mahoney Mugs out of either of those accounts, it's going to work. On the second part here, I like to change this option here from description to bank text. That's that bank detail memo. If that contains Mahoney Mugs, I want it to go over there. Now, I don't know if you've ever noticed, but if you go to someplace like Arco, there's 50 million Arcos or chevrons in the world. So they're all going to, their bank detail is going to be different based on that store number. So I'm going to want to watch what I have here because I don't want to create a rule for all 50 million chevrons. I'm going to maybe shorten that to where it'll just say chevron, and then I'll be able to make my rule with that. Okay. So I'm going to use this as my bank text. My bank text contains Mahoney Mugs. I'm going to assign it as an expense. It's going to go in my category of advertising, and I'm going to do payee of Mahoney Mugs again. So that way I've got my payee for my vendors in case I'm going to be doing a 1099 for them. Down here, I can assign more if I want to, like if I wanted a memo that I want to put on that, if I want to do my tags, I absolutely can do that. And then this last option that I have down here is to either auto add that, or I just want to see it show up in my rules in my bank feeds and I can make a choice about it. I like to use this for different reasons. An auto add might be something like if I'm getting a utility from like Northwest Natural, or if I'm getting a utility from Comcast, right? That's always going to be internet services. It's never going to not be internet services. So if there's an existing thing like that, then I might actually auto add that transaction because I don't ever have to make a decision again about Comcast. Since Comcast is always going to be internet services, once I make this rule, I want it just to come out of my bank feeds and go straight into my register. Now we've gotten into a position where we're doing a little bit less data entry because we're creating this rule. Now, you need to be cautious about rule. People get excited when they hear this because they're like, cool, no data entry. Not what I said. You still want to be making some decisions. You still want to be taking a look at things. But if it's set up correctly and you use it sparingly and use it for specific reasons, and you actually go in and review your rules every once in a while, you'll find that this can be a huge benefit. Because again, Comcast is always going to be internet, or maybe you categorize it in a different way, whatever you choose for it to be. I'm going to go ahead and save this, and it's going to make that rule for me. We're going to go into the rules tab now, so you can see that I have this particular rule. I can come in here and edit it. I can make it inactive. I can look at whatever I need to do. I can disable it, delete it, whatever. Okay. If I want to set up a new rule just from the very beginning, I can also do that here. So this was our banking tab, to go over that again, and this is our rules. So I'm going to go ahead and set up a new rule. Now we're going to get into some different things that I can do and make work for me specifically when it comes to rules. So let's say I get a new rule, a new loan. So I'm going to put in here car loan. I like how it's trying to auto feed for me there. So this is going to be a money out. I'm going to do it specifically just out of the checking account. Okay. So like, for example, if it's Chase Auto Loan, I don't want it accidentally grabbing something else that is written to Chase, which could be a credit card by accident, and doing that. So I'm going to choose this just for checking. I'm going to do my bank text, and I'm going to say that it includes the words like Chase Auto Finance. Okay. I'm also going to add in a condition that the amount is going to equal a specific payment amount that I am paying for this particular load, because I could have multiple car loans. So I'm going to do 535.48. Okay. Down here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a transaction type of an expense. My category, my first one would be to that particular loan liability, right? I'm going to split this because I'm going to have interest on this. So I'm going to show you this kind of cool feature here. So I'm going to add a split. I can do this by a percentage. So if I know that this particular car loan is at 3.25%, I can put that percentage in here and it will categorize that for me, okay? So if I do 3.25 and my category is going to be interest, of course we don't have an interest expense, we will add one quickly. I'm going to add a category of interest expense. It is going to, which I probably should have put this on this list because this is a great feature too. This is called a quick add. I went ahead and typed interest expense, the name of my chart of account. I'm going to put it as an expense and I'm going to save and close. Now it's in there. Okay. So I can do that even from here if I don't have the particular chart of account that I need. So 3.25 interest percent, and then this would be the balance of that, which if my math is correct, should be 96.75, right? Hopefully I got that right. And then my liability would be that car loan. So I can put that in there. I can add in my payee, my tags. Again, I can auto add it, or this one I might actually want to see in my bank feed. So that way I can see when it comes through and I can make sure I don't want to make any adjustments or changes. So fabulous feature that I can do with this and really dig down into like car loan number 1, car loan number 2, whatever it would be, I can do the split here. So super fantastic feature, knowing that this capability is here. If you need more details on that, please go ahead and reach out to us. Laura, did you have something you want to add to that?
Yeah, just something quick to the business owners out there. One of the biggest errors I see when we help do a month-end close for a client is a lot of folks, when it comes to things like auto loan payments, they just book it all against the loan rather than splitting between interest expense and principal. I'm just bringing that up in case that is something that you have seen in the past. That is a common error. So this is one great way to fix that.
Yep, it's great. So that is basically how you set up the rules. If you want a little bit more in-depth information on this, or you're like, wait a minute, how did she get there again? Reach out to us. We'd love to go over this with you again, more on a one-on-one version. Now, the last thing that I want to show you right now in particular that has to do with this is all great and dandy if your bank account attaches to bank feeds. But what if you have one of those credit unions or one of those banks that just don't attach, which by the way, there's a lot of them that do. But if you have one that doesn't, we may want to go ahead and use the value of the bank feeds without having to hand enter all of those transactions. So we're going to actually show you that today. First thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to have the bank account set up in your chart of accounts. So I'm going to go ahead and add one really quick. I'm just going to call it new bank for today. And I'm going to go ahead and save and close that. Then there's a feature that you can import data. We're not going to spend a lot of time going over the how-tos of this, but in your gear sign, you're going to import the data and you're going to want a CSV file to be able to do that with easily. So I created one really quickly. And I'm going to put that, let's see, it's on my desktop, I think. Uh-oh, if I can't get to it, then this isn't going to be as much fun. I thought that's where I saved it. Maybe I didn't. Downloads, let's see. There it is, example. Okay, and I can browse, find that, and then I can say next. And because it's a sample file, it's not going to let me, but I wanted to show you that I could do this, okay? So you can go ahead and import this information in. What it is going to do is take these transactions that are the bank detail, the amounts, and it's going to put them in a bank feed type feature. So you're able to go ahead and add those transactions in. Again, since it's a sample file, I can't really do it, but I wanted to show you that is actually an option for you. So if you cannot get it set up, you cannot get to bank feeds because your bank does not connect, this is something that can be done also another way. So especially for those, we have clients who come to us and go, oh, this would have been great to know about bank feeds in January of last year. If you can get the transactions into an Excel format for the last year, then we can import all of the data at the same time. Okay, so I just wanted to be able to let you know about that. The next thing we're going to kind of start talking about is we're going to move on into like built-in calculators and some of the other things. So Laura, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. One thing I do want to point out about the upload real quick is when let's say I think this mostly works also, especially with credit cards. It's sometimes hard to integrate your QBO account with a credit card, particularly if it's a credit card with multiple accounts. It could get a little touchy there, so that's where also the uploads can work. Another thing is you can usually only upload, it would only sync 90 days of transactions. So if for some reason, this happens a lot, a client comes to us and says, I haven't done books in 2 years. Please, can you set up a set of books for me? That's when we also use the upload feature because obviously we can't integrate 2 years worth of data. So that's one quick thing. So that concludes the portion about bank feeds and rules, which I know we spent a lot of time on that, but it's such an important feature. So it definitely deserved our time. There are some other small things that I think are fun for you to know. One of them is the built-in calculators. Joy right now is going to set up a transaction, but I don't know if a lot of people know this, but when you go into the amount section, did you know that if you need to, let's say, add up a bunch of information on an invoice, you can actually do the addition right in this field directly? And Joy is showing that. And she presses enter and boom, it does the addition for her. So that keeps you from having to pull out your calculator or work on your 10 key or pull up Excel and start adding on things over there to put the number here. You can actually just use this as your Excel or your calculator directly in this field. This applies to, I think, all fields that are an amount field. We use it a lot. I've seen for journal entries, when you're trying to figure out how to balance your journal entry and, okay, how much am I off? You can use it there. That's also a fun feature. So if you guys have any questions about that, that's a quick one. Just let us know if you have any questions or start trying it out yourself. I know another great feature is the setting up of recurring transactions. This is a great way to have some efficiencies in your accounting function. Joy is going to go ahead and demonstrate that.
So literally, I'm just going to go ahead and take this expense and make it recurring. You see down here, that's one of my options. So I can do this with bills. I can do it with expenses. I would be hesitant to do it for deposits, but I guess there's also an argument can be made for those as well. So if I want to make this recurring, I'm going to click on this and this pops up for my recurring expense. I'm going to call this was my bank charges. So I'm going to go ahead and make that be my title. The types I can use are if it's a scheduled thing, so it happens on the 10th of every month, and I want to go ahead and just have that information automatically come in, and then my bank feed is going to come in and match that transaction, right? We're doing all the things we want to do. We can get that going. Or if I want it to be a reminder, hey, this is something that's coming up in the future. You're going to want to know about this, okay? Or if it's an unscheduled thing where I don't know when it's going to happen, but I want to retain this information because I'm going to use it over and over again. A lot of different reasons why you would use a recurring transaction. This one I'm going to go ahead and schedule. I can put in the payee, which account it's coming out of, monthly, which day I get to choose, when it starts, et cetera, et cetera. My payment method, you can see I can go through all of these things and go ahead and make this recurring transaction. So I'm going to go ahead and start this on 6/1. Let's do it in the future, not in the past. That'd be better. And my payment method, maybe I'm going to choose American Express or a credit card of some kind or whatever it would be. However I was going to do it, I'm going to go ahead and save that template. Now, where I'm going to find these, because I can do this with a lot of different transactions, is up here in my gear. I'm going to come over here under lists and go to recurring transactions. And then that's where they're going to be. You can see that they have other samples of this as well. So they have a telephone bill, excuse me, that you can use. I'm going to go ahead and edit that just so you can see what it looks like. Again, they do it on a certain day. They can put in the information, the terms, et cetera, et cetera. It's going to bring that up. You can also do this with items. So if you do any type of job costing or item tracking, you can do that as well. And you can do this on invoices. So very, very cool little feature that you can use, recurring transactions. The couple of the things that I want to show you about, they are really hard to demo in a sample file. So I'm just going to bring your attention to them. One of the first things is QuickBooks Payments. I'm a big fan of this. If you use any kind of merchant services, if you use Intuit Merchant Services, known as QuickBooks Payments, when you invoice outside of QuickBooks Online and send that to a customer, and we kind of talked about this a little bit last session, when you send that, there will be a link right on there where they can click on it, pay it, and it will bring in that payment into your QuickBooks Online. It charges the card, it attaches it to the invoice, and it puts it in your undeposited funds and groups them together. So if you have multiple payments like that, then it can bring it all in at the same time. So fabulous, fabulous feature. This merchant services is available in both desktop and QuickBooks Online. This web site is where I would go if you have questions about it. We also can help connect you with someone if you need to be. But just take a look at this. This is kind of a sample of what I show you that shows up in the email. Great, great feature. They go through the rates. So I would take a look at this. This is for QuickBooks Payments. If you don't know how to find it, just Google QuickBooks Payments and this is going to come up. Okay. The next thing is the receipt capture. Fabulous feature. Also can't show it in a demo file, but it is, you've heard people talk about before that I went to a restaurant and I don't want to have to carry the receipt back to the office. Or in particular, when people are doing a lot of traveling, they just want to do a quick snapshot of that receipt. They can do that, and this receipt capture will allow it to come into kind of this holding place inside of QuickBooks, a little bit different than our Purgatory, but still kind of a holding place, and then it can be assigned to an expense, and that attachment can be right there. So a great feature. Again, if you just Google receipt capture, QuickBooks Smart Capture, this information is here. It'll walk you through the steps. You register your own email. I highly recommend that you do this. This is something I actually use in my own personal books. So I recommend that you really look at this. So those are two more features that are some of our favorites, the receipt capture and the QuickBooks Payments. Laura, you wanted to talk a little bit more about chart of accounts and some more favorite apps?
Can I jump?
Yeah, I know.
Oh, can I jump in real quick with another question that we received?
Absolutely.
And this one ties right in. If someone sends me a QuickBooks bill, can I bring it right into my QuickBooks file and pay it with it auto recording it for that vendor?
They send you a QuickBooks bill. So they are in QuickBooks. They're sending you an invoice for them, which would be a bill for you, and you're wanting to bring it into QuickBooks as an auto connection. That's a really good question. It seems like there'd be a way to automate it. You know what? We need to dig into that to find out a little bit more, and we will get back to you. Can you make a note of who that asked that question, Jamie, and we will get back to them?
Will do. Will do.
Okay.
All right.
Great question.
It's possible it's something we need to bring up with Intuit. So
exactly. So many of these features are strong and help with the processing. And as Joy was saying, all we need to necessarily do, if it doesn't, QuickBooks is very, very open to saying, oh, you want that? Yes, we do. We'll get that in our next version. So great question, and take it away back to Joy and Laura.
Thank you. So I do want to talk, I know we only have a few minutes left, so we want to make a good use of this time. I do want to talk about the chart of accounts really quick, but I did there was something I did not mention when we were talking about uploading the bank data to go into the feed. The bank account, most bank accounts, if not all that I've seen, they have a section where it's called download bank transactions, and they already have set up the template that QBO can read. Yep. So if you're asking for a template, I did see some questions about, is there a template? The bank, particularly if you're using well-known banks and even some of the smaller community banks, they do have a section that says download transactions, and it could be downloaded as a CSV file. And there is some sort of QBO type file, whether it's called QBB or IIF. So few things. So it really depends on your bank. But what I want to let you know is it's very flexible, and we can make this work, and we can help you out with that. So one thing I do want to bring up, it's a best practice, my opinion, and I think it is the opinion of also Joy and Jamie, because we did mention this. In the chart of accounts, one thing that I notice with a lot of the clients we work with when we initially work with them, they do not always have account numbers when they have their chart of accounts. And things can get a little bit confusing when you don't have account numbers as part of your chart of accounts. We highly recommend that you turn on the feature where you use account numbers. Joy mentioned earlier about revenue streams. It does come up when you have several types of revenue, and I've seen books that it's one account is called revenue, one account is called billed invoices, and another account is called fees. And you're thinking, what is the difference? And of course, there's transactions in all three sections. So we do want to make sure that when you do build your chart of accounts, try to be as distinct as possible with the naming of the account. And we just recommend you use a chart of accounts. So when internally or with your BSG consultant, you are talking about accounts, you can name it by the account number so that everybody's on the same page and everybody knows which account you are referring to. So that's one thing that we want to bring up. The last thing, I know we have 3 more minutes. One of the best things about QuickBooks Online is the integration of apps. So what that is, and Joy has brought up the website. The key thing about QuickBooks Online is the ability to integrate with other popular cloud-based apps that are out there. The biggest one, Bill.com. A lot of folks who are our client, we have set you guys up on Bill.com. Great feature if you want to hear more about it. We actually, on the 4th session of this boot camp, we are going to have a representative from Bill.com presenting, so don't miss it. But here, one of the great things is if you have a function that you don't feel that QuickBooks can address, there are a lot of apps out there that integrate. Another one, Salesforce. A lot of you folks out there are probably using Salesforce. Salesforce integrates with QBO. Expensify for your employee reimbursements, another popular one that integrates very well with QBO. Obviously, we're not going to show you how to do it today, but we want to give you an idea. It's this website. We'll send you the link. You go to this website. You can do a search by, let's say, inventory or manufacturing, whatever you want. SOS inventory comes up. You enter, and it'll give you all the apps that integrate with QBO. So you would maintain your inventory at SOS inventory, and it integrates with QBO. Other popular ones, I do want to bring up one called, and I might pronounce it incorrectly. Everybody I talk to does not know how to pronounce it. It's called Sasant or Sasant. It's spelled S-A-S-A-N-T. This is a lifesaver. This is actually a way to import invoices and other voluminous transactions that you might have. Wonderful feature. We have deployed it on some of our clients. Just want to let you know that if you have a lot of data, maybe checks that are written outside of QBO for some reason, payroll checks perhaps, you need to import them, Sasant or Sasant is your friend. I am going to call them and ask them one day how they pronounce their name. So other ones, Gusto, that's a payroll one that integrates. Fathom. Fathom is a reporting dashboard. And again, we are going to have a representative from Fathom in our 4th session to talk to you about reporting and dashboards. I highly recommend you attend that one. So again, that concludes our webinar for today. If you have any questions, we will bring up the slide right now that has our faces and our emails. Please, please feel free to reach out to us with any questions. Follow us on LinkedIn. There's our QR code. We are going to send a recording of this session. We do have one final polling question. If you guys could just bear with us a second. We do want to bring that up so folks can get their CPE. Which feature that did you learn about today that you plan to implement immediately? Your choice might not be on here, but maybe pick one of the three, just so that we know how this went. But feel free to drop a line to any of us. Let us know what you thought of today's session. If there's anything else you ever want us to go through, we are here at your disposal. Thank you again for attending session 2. We look forward to seeing you in session 3. That invitation should be going out late this week or early next. Have a wonderful rest of the day, everyone. And again, thank you for attending.